Okay, so the last technique I'd like to go over is the contour command, which is essentially a method for slicing your geometry. And here we have a doubly curved surface, maybe it's a landscape of some sort, and I've purposefully gone and given it a base so that when we use the contour command and it slices through this geometry, all of my sections that are produced are closed shapes, which is what would be necessary for laser cutting to kind of have a contiguous piece that gets cut out of the sheet material. Let's look at the contour command. So I'll select it, type in contour, hit enter, and it's asking for, a point to start the contour from. So I'll choose this bottom left corner and holding shift to keep it constrained. I'm telling Rhino to move in the X direction. So I'll click to set that. And the distance between contours right now is set to 1 inch. Maybe I'll just, for convenience sake, set it to 4 inches. And so it started from this corner and just kind of went in 4-inch increments all the way in this direction, slicing it kind of like a loaf of bread, you could say. So I'm just going to move this out here and put those on the cut layer. And here's, okay, good. All right, so the next step, would be to lay these out flat, so that they can be laser cut. So here's the process for that. I'm actually going to change my viewport layout. So I'm clicking here to kind of reset my 4 viewports. Come over here, select this, and now typing in synchronize views, enter, you can see that all my other viewports kind of synchronize to look at the same focal point. All right, so I find this helpful because you can see it in all the four different viewports. So I've used the gumball to kind of rotate this up vertically, and the reason for that is we want to separate each of these contours out away from each other. So I can see here in 3D. In front view, it's a bit more convenient, and I can see that and actually move it from this viewport in the front view. And what I'm trying to do is just clear that last contour. Holding down Control, I can deselect that next one and just keep doing this process. And hopefully you get the idea that, what I'm trying to do here. I can see it in top view, each of those contours being separated out. So it is a little bit of a manual thing that you have to, takes a little bit of time, but yeah, that's just what it is. All right, so you get the idea. I'm not gonna do all of them. All right, so let's take a look. So here in perspective view, you can see that everything gets separated out. They are still kind of floating above each other, or just they're floating. So I'm going to use the project to C-plane command, in perspective view, and I'm going to hit enter and delete objects, yes. So basically that won't create duplicates, it's just basically flattening everything. So that's a nice way to get everything back onto the C-plane. All right. I would also kind of keep track of which is which, because all of these shapes look the same, but when you want to glue them back in order, you'll need some way to keep track of the order. So one little handy tip is to add some numbers. So here I'll type in 01, and that will be put on the score layer, because I don't want it to cut all the way through. I just want to make some kind of marking so that I can keep track of it. So I'll do that for each of them. Here, 02. And that's just so that when after they're laser cut and they're sitting on your desk, you know which one to glue in front of the other one. All right. That I'm going to group these just so that the text and the curves kind of stay together. And I think the last step might be to try to optimize, how many I can fit on a sheet. So you may have to play around a little bit with nesting these geometries. Maybe this one, for example, could go. It all depends on the kind of geometry that you're trying to laser cut. And so that's the contour command. Noticed I went in one direction along the X direction, and if I were to create a kind of a waffle structure or a two-way kind of grid shell, you could contour it in the other way as well. So here, typed in contour, clicked on that corner, and this time I'm going in the Y direction, and maybe this increment maybe 2, just so they're a little bit more frequent. All right, so there we go. And same thing, so basically you could put these two together, these two directions. I'll just recreate that one here with 4 inches in both directions. I'm just going to place these so you can kind of pre-visualize what this would look like. Typed in planar surf just to kind of fill those in, but just to give you an idea of like what you might be creating with that method. So and of course you could also go in the vertical direction. So that was X and Y. Here I'll do contour. And this time I'm going to choose base point and go vertically. And maybe the contour should be 1 inch, a little bit more closer together. Let's move this out here. So this looks like a site model. I'll type in planar surf. So you can kind of get an idea. So here, when you're doing a stack model like this, I think you would probably take into account, figure out what size material you're using, so that you can get the right increment step. So in this case, this material I typed in 1, so that means this is a 1 inch spacing.